This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about two Nicolas Roeg movies. And we're being joined by a friend of the show, Aaron Lange, Cleveland cartoonist and raconteur.
Is that an official designation? Or
I'm pretty sure I saw that business card, right?
Raconteur. Am I even saying it right?
I think that's all. Yeah,
close enough.
Good enough for me. Someone will let us know, I'm sure, in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
First up, we got Bad Timing, directed by Nicolas Roeg from 1980.
Why first?
I don't know. That's the Spine Order. It's not even.
Order.
The Spine Order.
It's Spine Order. It's not by numerical. Yeah, I know. It pissed me off too because it shouldn't be because it's 1980. Fuck.
Spine Order.
Yeah, that's how John Criterion wants us to watch these goddamn movies. So he said you're watching Bad Timing first, and then you'll watch the movie made 4 years earlier because fuck you. That's how it starts. So
that's gonna be the only time that's happened where films that were made back to back are released back to back, but in the wrong order. That's got to be be first.
That's the Criterion Collection, baby. They do whatever the fuck they feel like.
Yeah, no one tells John what to do. No one puts Johnny in the corner. The tagline for Bad Timing, his terrifying obsession took them to the brink of death and beyond. What kind of movie is this? Jesus.
Wait, that's the tagline?
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah,
so had you guys seen this before, or was
never.
This your first watch?
The first time.
These are both rewatches for the big dog over here.
Yeah, RJ somehow watched Bad Timing before me.
So actually I'll talk. Well, I'll just tell you guys now. I own Bad Timing and Man Who Fell to Earth. Man Who Fell to Earth, my old roommate bought for me as a birthday present. But before that, I had bought Bad Timing because Christopher Nolan said that he was a big fan of it because it was non-linear. And I was like, I'm interested in non-linear storytelling. So I before we even started the podcast, I had Bad Timing and I had seen it, but I haven't watched it since then, obviously. But yeah, both of these. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
15 years ago. So
15 years. Oh, okay. See, that's longer than.
Did you watch it after? Right, you would have watched it right after it actually was available by Criterion, right? Because there was this period of time where this was just not commercially available, outside of maybe bootlegs and stuff like that. Because
that's right.
Yes. So
I got it so long ago. I actually rented it. I got it out of the video store, so it must have been around when it came out on Criterion.
Yeah, because it was, because they would have been. I remember, on Wikipedia, it mentions it was the first time it had been available outside of a documentary that had clips of it. That Z. We'll get there.
Well, I was just saying earlier today, I was talking to my wife about it, how no one ever seems to talk about Bad Timing in relation to Nicolas Roeg movies. And I guess that explains it, because it barely got released theatrically, and then it was never on VHS. It was just kind of a real obscurity.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is weird because it's this was the first Nick Roeg movie I had seen over any of the others. So I agree with you. It is probably one of the least talked about ones, but this was the one I watched before anything else. And I think I hold this one and Man Who Fell to Earth in higher regards to definitely Walkabout or fucking witches or Don't Look Now is a different thing altogether. But
I haven't seen Walkabout. I've seen I've seen everything else from Performance up to Bad Timing, with the exception of Walkabout.
You're okay. It's fine to miss that one. Don't worry.
It's kind of what I hear, but I do like Nicolas Roeg, so
yeah. I don't know. My opinion's mixed, but
after Bad Timing, the only one I've seen is Track 29.
Oh, yeah. See, I haven't seen that one.
No, I don't. Yeah. I don't know that one.
It's a weird one. It's Gary Oldman, Teresa Russell again, and Christopher Lloyd. It's really, really weird. Gary Oldman shows up, and you can't tell if he's real or not.
One of those.
Yeah, Teresa Russell's like son, but like maybe he's like in her imagination, and it gets kind of like Oedipal, you know. Christopher Lloyd is her husband, and he's like really into model trains.
Who isn't?
It's a fucking weird movie.
He's got weird ones for sure.
I was going to say with Bad Timing, I knew nothing about this movie at all when I started watching it, so it was completely wrong. Yeah. I thought this movie was going to be what I think Insignificance is, because I think when I was talking about it, I'm like, yeah, like Albert Einstein and Marilyn Monroe, and I'm like, nope, that's a different movie called Insignificance, which I thought that's what Bad Timing was. So that's how much I knew going in, because there's also Eureka and Bad Timing are kind of viewed as this trilogy of movies, because he just made them 3 in a row, I guess, and they all have, I think, Teresa Russell's in all 3. His who would go on to be after Bad Timing, Nick Roeg and Teresa Russell would get married and be together for like 15 years. Ooh. Yeah,
she's in a crazy career. I really like her. And then she's like, it's not a good movie, but like another classic Teresa Russell role is Ken Russell's Whore.
Yeah,
like obnoxious movie, but classic Teresa Russell.
Yeah, well, yeah,
not a lot of actresses would do what she does. She is just like. Really, she goes there, you know.
So Bad Timing, a synopsis for this movie.
Oh,
Alex Linden is a psychiatrist living in Vienna who meets Milena Flaherty through a mutual friend. Though Alex is quite a bit older than Milena, he's attracted to her young, carefree spirit. Despite the fact that Milena is already married, their friendship quickly turns into a deeply passionate love affair that threatens to overtake them both. When Milena ends up in the hospital from an overdose, Alex is taken into custody by Inspector Netusel. So, I mean, that's like... This is the magic, I think, of Nick Roeg's filmmaking, is because he could take what sounds like a pretty by-the-numbers movie that no one will ever talk about ever again, but he brings that Nicolas Roeg magic to it with that disjunctive editing of his, which I think, if you take that away from these movies, I don't know what you'd be left with. Am I wrong here?
I agree. I agree completely. It's the non-linear, disjunctive storytelling that really stands out for Bad Timing. What about you, Aaron Lange?
Well,
you like that editing?
Yeah, that's what I like about Nicolas Roeg, because he actually makes movies. Like they're actually cinematic, and he uses the language that's inherent to cinema. He's not just like making like a TV show or filming a play. It's not just like it's not screenplay driven. It's director driven, which is what I like plenty of these like prestige streaming TV shows. You know, some of them are good, but they're very, very writer driven. They're not director driven, and they don't often employ the language of cinema, like the type of editing, cinematography. Maybe they could. There's nothing stopping them, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, outside of you have to be a heavy hitter to be able to kind of get away with doing anything resembling experimentation with like television, because I mean, even when David Lynch was doing his Twin Peaks The Return stuff, I mean, there's still people that probably hate his guts for those scenes where it's like, hey, it's a guy pushing a broom and cleaning the floor of the bar for like 5 minutes.
I wasn't a fan, to be honest.
Yeah.
I love, I don't know if either of you guys have seen, but there's that like behind the scenes thing of David Lynch on Twin Peaks where someone is like, people aren't going to like this. Scene's got to be under this kind of time limit. And David Lynch was like, who fucking gives a shit? He's like, if a scene is however long I want it to be. And he doesn't.
He like takes his headphones off. He's like, everyone keeps fucking saying this.
He's
just like, I'm gonna do whatever I feel like. Who gives a shit?
I've said this before. I mean, I think David is an angry man, and the Jimmy Stewart bullshit and the transcendental meditation, it's all the mask, which makes sense because it's like what his movies are about. It's sort of this like this seething anger, and the way his villains and the way he writes. there's something there to it, which I think is why stuff is interesting. But man,
I think
like,
both can be true.
Yeah, but it's like because he's all bowling. But man, like you see those moments, those glimmers of like the simmering rage that break through, and you're just like, huh. I mean, so far all his ladies, because he's got all these women that he works with only, and they all, oh, David, he's so wonderful, and I'm like, I always feel like are we just like any morning I will see Twitter canceling David Lynch, and it'll be like, oh dear, who could have seen it coming? But I hope not, because I like his movies a lot. But that all being said, so this movie opens up, and I was like, it's a profile shot of Art Garfunkel, who I did not realize was in this movie. And then I was like, who's this Art Garfunkel looking guy? And then the title card comes up, Art Garfunkel. I went, oh, well played, Nick Roeg. Nick, well played. Because, Art Garfunkel, he's a guy that shows up in these movies once in a while. He shows up in Catch-22. Way back, it's been years since I've seen it. I watched Carnal Knowledge. And it's always like, it was this like Art Garfunkel guy. Like I barely ever listened to like Simon and Garfunkel until I probably saw movies with him in it. And I was always like, who is this guy? And then going back and listening to his music and be like, oh, it's these songs from AM radio. And like started connecting the dots back. This is a while back. So, but I've always have actually been fairly impressed with him as an actor. I think he's pretty good. And this movie does himself no favors at all. Because like, man, I don't know. I could walk away thinking anything good about Art.
I think he's great in this movie, and I also think he fucking looks really cool. And he's not normally a guy you think of as like a style icon, but whenever he's pulling it off, just like. Suits are cool. He's got cigarettes. He's got sunglasses. Yeah. His hair's just like disheveled the right amount. He's got something going on.
He's got that weird like balding fro.
Yeah, and it looks good. Like
it does. Yeah. So you brought up the cigarettes, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention again that you are living my best life. The fact that you can smoke inside of your house, it's amazing. I love it. But Art Garfunkel, the beanpole with an afro, it is a distinct look. But
that car he drives.
Oh, yes. But so I was taking screenshots today for the Instagram because I know Aaron, you watch our Instagram. You know I hit the boys with the dank memes. But I was taking some screenshots, and there's a scene where his eyes are sparkling. Like they honestly, like they look beautiful. And like I didn't notice it when I was watching the movie, but when I was screenshotting it, I was just like, wow, what a handsome man, just based on his sparkling eyeballs. But I was gonna say, I never do this, but because The Man Who Fell to Earth was given to me as a present, I actually watched the supplements, and there was a mention, and I'll just say now because they talk about it with David Bowie, but the same vein, because the guy even says, he's like, well, it's the same thing that Nick did with Bad Timing, casting Art Garfunkel, and he said he liked performers, not actors. He liked using people who had like stage presence.
Well, that Mick Jagger,
that's what it was all about. Yeah, exactly. So like his big thing is like it wasn't just that they were like music stars. He's like, I just like people Nick Roeg just liked people who had stage presence, and that's why he went after these big performing artists. But the Garfunkel effect.
So, Aaron, you went to the one place I was going to mention eventually, because there's like a thorough line between Bad Timing, Man Who Fell to Earth, and Performance, obviously with him using musicians as like lead characters. But the other thing, the secret lead of these three movies is just like the most, I don't know, destitute, gross ass beds, like, or like bed sheets, and just like this, like I don't know, I don't know a lot about the biographical life of Nick Roeg, but this is a guy that feels like he has struggled with depression, because I feel like he spends a lot of time in bed and does a lot of writing in bed and wallowing in bed, and like he always, everything comes back to that, and he also has a lot of sex in bed and just smoking cigarettes, drinking in bed, and I don't know. That's like, if I had to think of like, because usually Walkabout is the go-to movie for Roeg, like, and so it's like this outback scene, which makes no sense, like, because none of his other movies even feel like that at all. But other than the disjunctive editing that permeates Walkabout, but these three movies, like those three movies and Performance, which I'm not even that crazy of, I'm not the big fan of Performance. I've tried, Well, I've tried.
The performance really hit me hard when I saw it at a screening in my early 20s, and I was blown away by it. And then I watched it again, some years after, and it didn't have the same effect on me.
Right.
I'd like to revisit it, but the first time I saw it, it really fucking blew me away. But I'm not sure it holds up or not. But it's wild.
People still really like it. Like when I check out my on Letterboxd, the people I follow and stuff like that. Overall, people seem to be really, really high on that movie, and it should be like right up my alley. But because especially at the time, because you have this like British gangster story, kind of psychedelic, heady, like shifting identities. It's should be great, and something about it just leaves me totally. Cause it's also a weird movie too, because it's got two directors. Because
do you know about the other directors?
I know. See, this is where things blur for me, because I know I've looked that Don Camel, right?
Yeah.
And his like unfortunate, like, because what did he die from? Because there's these, right? Because there's Don Camel, and I always confuse him with the guy who directed Witchfinder General for some reason in my head. But their stories blur, but they're different people.
He committed suicide in this like intentionally in this way where you like die slowly and you're conscious the whole time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're like,
I like that.
I don't know how much of that's like an urban.
Camel. Well, here, Camel committed suicide by shotgun in 1996. So,
the Hemingway approach.
Now, see, the one for some reason I conflate Don Camel and Michael Reeves for some reason, but like Michael Reeves just died of like a accidental alcohol and barbiturate overdose, so completely different. But for some reason, I lumped these two English filmmakers together, and so here, and actually, so speaking of Don Camel, another one of his movies that I'm just not a fan of what he's doing, because White of the Eye, that's another movie that people like fucking love that movie, and I was just, when I first watched it, I was kind of like, this is so boring. And I like Demon Seed, his movie about
yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Arms.
Oh yeah,
Demon Seed's all right.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Good stuff. And then some movie called Duffy that is a crime comedy with Susanna York. Oh dear. Anyway, what movie we're talking about? We're talking about Bad Timing. So
sure.
You get tossed into this movie, and it's just gonna be these two couple, this girl and this guy, they meet, but we're getting the story kind of from the contemporary, which is her having an overdose, him bringing her into the hospital. The police are asking questions like, how do you know them? And of course he's very evasive about it, non-committal, which is kind of the nature of their relationship. And then the story is going to unfold. Eventually we're introduced to one of Vienna's greatest actors, Harvey Keitel.
Isn't he Canadian?
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah, so Canadian by way of Vienna, Harvey Keitel, unmistakable. I don't know what was up with Harvey Keitel getting cast in all these things. This man with like the thickest like New York accent imaginable, showing up as Judas in Last Temptation of Christ. Here he's playing a Viennese police detective.
What's the Ridley Scott dueling one?
Oh,
The Duelist.
Yeah, Duelist. Yeah.
Oh, that movie's great.
Yeah, I mean that movie. I mean, you got like Carradines and stuff like that too, so that one's fine. Like at least it's all. But here you have, I don't know. It's so odd. But it's like I think Harvey Keitel also is pretty cool here. Looking pretty nice. His long flowing hair, but I don't know. It's so. I'm got sidetracked here a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we start getting the flashbacks of the blossoming of their relationship. They just kind of cross paths at a party.
At first, yes.
At first, and then she's into what he is. She's into the beanpole with the afro on top. Yeah,
she likes his demeanor, and he's just trying to roll by, but she doesn't allow that, Jarrett. She says, "Hey, I'm into you."
She seems like trouble. We get a real showcase of Gustav Klimt paintings. RJ, do you know who that is?
Gustav Klimt, he's one of my faves. I love that guy.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Well, do you notice there's the Egon Schiele as well?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of the key to the movie,
And the setting.
where you might want to think that like, Art Garfunkel is like the Klimt, like kind of orderly and put together, and that Teresa Russell is the Egon Schiele and kind of crazy. But really, I think the opposite is true, as we learn at the end of the film.
Right.
So Klimt is kind of like shiny and decorative and like extroverted, and that's Teresa Russell. And then with Schiele, there's something not right. There's like a real diseased thinking going on. And as the film develops, we kind of see this dark side to our Garfunkel's character, like the things.
Right, and then there's just the whole aspect of him being this like psychiatrist who they have this Cold War kind of backdrop happening, and it's like, again, information is just kind of dropped there. It relies on the audience to kind of just hold that information in their head for a little bit. Don't get too impatient. We'll eventually get there, and then you find out that information, and you'll be like, oh, I feel satisfied. I'm finding out things when I need to, because it doesn't matter, because you're never going to see these people ever again after the movie's over. But man, that's the sort of stuff that nowadays, audiences, they would not be able to wait to find out what's going on, and they would start declaring, "I'm lost. Who's that?" But it's like,
is that what you did?
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. I was writing the notes. Yeah. Doesn't make sense. 0 stars.
This film does feel like the end of an era. It's like 1980. Yeah. And this is like, it's kind of one of the last hurrahs of like 1970s cinema.
Yeah. Well, because there is its own distributor, the Rank organization.
The Rand organization?
The Rank organization.
Oh, okay.
There's a kiddie tail. They branded it a sick film made by sick people for sick people.
They're not wrong.
Nice.
And giving it that big hard X-rated action. So that's one way to you send a lot of people away, but it's also attracts a certain type of person too, who wants to watch
Interesting.
Some
art trash like us.
Totally, absolutely. Like this is, I mean, I'm not. I'm
art trash.
Total, absolutely. I haven't watched a lot of like the Paul Morrissey, Warhol productions. We've watched enough. We watched Flesh 4 and Blood 4, but I haven't seen the trash. But this is like kind of, I mean, it's more of the classy version of a John Waters movie in some ways.
So with this movie, actually, it has parallels with Creep's favorite, The Night Porter.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yes.
Our Vienna setting.
Yep.
Our lovers that can't extract themselves from their relationship. This kind of claustrophobia and like
complex sexual acts.
There's a lot of overlap with the two movies.
And but this movie's also got The Who.
So I don't know if you know this, but also, did you guys pick up on the Who subtle knocks in The Man Who Fell to Earth? Did you guys pick up on those? I'll tell you about them when we get there.
Okay.
If you don't know what I'm talking about yet, I'll hit you with that later. But I actually, so I don't know if I know Jarrett knows, but so like when I was doing my master's, the guy I worked with, he was a huge Who fan, and he's seen the Who like 10, 15 times. He saw them like in England in the 80s and stuff like that. And he's like talked to Pete Townsend and stuff and like all that shit. So when we watched Bad Timing, I actually watched it with him because he's a huge Who fan, and he loved that the Who was in there. But it was like the way they use the music's a little bit strange, because it'll be the song for like a minute. It'll be like, yow, and then it'll just end, and then it'll just be someone walking from a bus, and you'll just be like, oh, weird. I thought the song was
it's the jealousy theme from Bad Timing.
I know it's strange though, because it's just like it kicks in for like 30 seconds. It's like, yow, and then it just moves on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like strange.
And I feel like that song has become just like way bigger than I don't know. I'm not from 1980. Well, yeah, like it just has continued to be used over and over and over again, and I don't know what its life like, what its life was at in 1980 if it had been overplayed to death. It probably was. Like that was I feel like that was a fairly popular song.
The Who was pretty big.
Yeah, so hearing that, I'd be like, oh, it's the Who, and they signed off on this.
The classical music he uses, the canon in D.
Yep.
That's used like a lot in Ordinary People, which may have come out the same year.
Yeah, within a year. Yeah.
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 And like then that, I think that piece of music became kind of almost like a punchline, and almost like what's that one dramatic piece of music from like Excalibur they started using it like in trailers and
right.
50 Cent
about certain things just get kind of like reused.
Yeah. Well, because if it works, and you go back to it. So yeah, you have another movie that about a breakup and sort of weird tensions between a man and a woman, like using the Cold War as a backdrop, which of course brings me immediately back to the movie Possession with old Sam Neill, the Zulawski movie. But that's actually in Berlin as opposed to Vienna, and you get the process of an area divided up with this bridge and the kind of the back and forth between that, which again seems like so removed from my experience other than movies now. Like you watch like that Tom Hanks Bridge of Spies movie or some shit, and I don't know, it seems so a long time ago, but for other people it would be so in their living memory. So it's always like it's something about that places it immediately though, watching these movies that are set like right on that line of like Western Europe with when the Iron Curtain was still up and people were moving about this way between two locations. Just they could just walk. There's like a scene where literally a guy crosses the border, gets out of his car, and just walks back, and like no one looked like they were going to stop him from doing that. But you never know what's in that car. So
never know.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't like much of a plot to this movie other than you get bits and pieces of the relationship kind of get revealed, the ups and downs of the relationship. Nowadays, I feel like people would feel like this was very like shocking to people to have a relationship like this, where it's like, yeah, they're not like they see each other, but she sees whoever she wants, but they're kind of committed to one another. He's kind of along for it, and he starts falling more into her, which of course leads to a rejected marriage proposal, and she's like, no, I'm already married, I don't want to do anything. This is why ruin this. And for 1980, this probably was a bit more, I don't know. What I found interesting about this was it showed that like, no, these types of relationships did exist. It's not just a 2021 thing, which some people on Twitter might be like, hey, I'm living this life, isn't that shocking? You're like, no, people have been doing this forever, since people have been around. People have been doing this. It's the other stuff that people think are normal. That's the stuff that's kind of newer to us. But yeah, so you have this relationship you have the ups and downs of that relationship, and when he starts rejecting her because she's not going to be the person that he thinks that he wants her to be, then she starts pushing back, and she starts having these gestures of trying to kill herself, which escalate, and then we get to the big reveal at the end of the movie, which we'll talk more about when you guys can talk about it too. But there's this pressure, there's like this thorough line of the psychological part of the film, I guess, and maybe the tension of the movie is the police officers asking these questions. He wants to get to the truth of the matter because he knows something's wrong. He knows something's up. His cop senses tell him there's something amiss, and he gets pushing and pushing and pushing. We get the big vile reveal, which like I can only imagine watching this movie in a theater with like Art Garfunkel just full mount atop a unconscious overdosing woman. And just being like, what? And then you're like, I'm out. And then people say, this is a sick film made by sick people for sick people.
But like when he does that, it's I think also like the most like tender and vulnerable he is. We're like privy to him being with her the entire film. Like he kind of drops his guard. And God, I remember when I first saw that, I didn't know it was coming. It was just like, I can't fucking believe this. Like,
because there's like this rollout of like how he's like become so like just like antagonistic. And when she's like, I'm gonna try to make a phone call, and then he goes and just unplugs the phone, and you go, oh.
Yeah.
You're like, I see. Where's this all going? And there's this build-up, this mounting build-up of like what's going to happen. And as he gets her on the bed, and he's kind of going back and forth about this. And then there's this like weird little montage. Just like, did that literally happen, or is that happening inside of his head? Of him just like almost like having this like little dance, this movement, and you're like, are we going to cut away from this, or is it just going to be suggested when Harvey Keitel is talking about extraction?
Nope.
Nope.
You don't cut away.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, you're going to get that. You're going to get like a nice little montage, and yeah, you get some surgeries going on intercut as the story is splicing back and forth. With flashbacks to, is it her reliving memories? Is it just the audience getting to become privy to the information that the movie is going to reveal to us? It doesn't care. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, a lesser movie would be like, this is what's happening in her mind as she's like, what mistakes did I make to become here where I am now? It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about bad timing, apparently.
Yeah, what do you think that title means, Jarrett?
Well, this movie has two titles. It's real titles, Bad Timing, and apparently, my understanding, if I read this, is in the United States, it was Bad Timing / A Sensual Obsession.
Ooh.
Which I think makes even less sense than anything else. Like that's terrible. What does that mean? But yeah, so this movie left me in quite a state. I kind of went in to these two movies this weekend kind of feeling low. I don't know if it was this sudden drop of like having like the last 30 days in Creepsville here being like 32 degrees every single day to suddenly dropping to like 18 degrees overnight. Mm-hmm. And that should be actually like a relief, and I should be thrilled because I love days like that.
Yeah. Is that hot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well... RJ, look this up. What's 30 Celsius to Fahrenheit for our dear listeners? 90?
I'll look for
that's like
right
that's 90 degrees
95.
Fahrenheit. Yeah.
See, it sounds hotter my way, American way.
Oh yeah. See, it does.
We're not usually that hot. Is the thing. That's the hottest we've been for a very long time.
And it's like every day. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just got used to it. It didn't even feel that bad. You'd be like, oh, it's only 95 degrees Fahrenheit outside. This is good. And then it's a sudden just drop of like to half of that. We were like, oh, it's a little chilly, and that should cheer me up. But no, I just felt like shit. And I was like, okay, I want to watch Bad Time. And I went, oh, this movie's all about negative vibes, huh? So this movie, like I was feeling this movie and Man Who Fell to Earth a lot in a way where I'm like, well, I think this is actually a pretty good movie. I think it's an interesting movie. I absolutely love how he makes movies because, like you said, Aaron, he is like, and he's a filmmaker and he's engaged in like cinema and using cinematic techniques, not to just deliver a ABCD story. It's very obvious, like maybe the story is, it's not a simple story because you lay it out and you're like, oh yeah, this happens. A lot of movies would just strip out the nuance of it and it would become like a Hallmark movie, Lifetime movie, but which even dark for that, I suppose. But because of the way it's made, the era it came from, you wind up with something that is memorable, and it is complicated, and it makes it so there is no clear read of like character's intentions, and you see a moment in his weakness. You see, the Garfunkel character. What's his character's name? Alex. Dr. Linden. Alex. You get to see him perhaps at his worst, at his unleashed. And there's like this backstory about he's doing a study for the American military on this type of relation. He's creating a dossier that he's supposed to kind of create, and she finds out about that. And it's like almost like, who cares about this? Like it's sort of just there almost as I feel like kind of like background stuff, almost just like detail stuff, because it's mostly just about the watching the movie itself. I felt was good enough for me. But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on. What did you two think about this movie? Usually RJ prefers our guest to speak first. So Aaron, take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I'll just come out and say it clearly. I think this movie is great without any caveats or apologies.
Yep.
I think it might be my favorite movie of his, at least of the ones I've seen.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a masterpiece, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, totally. What else do you think? What else you got over there? Was that funny?
It's a great movie. I think I've already said other things about it previously. RJ, what do you think?
Sure. I thought you'd. Yeah, Arch can get in there. I thought you would have.
RJ, I will say that back in 2015, when you logged this movie online, you gave it 4 stars, which I think would come as a shock to many of our listeners here in 2021, who might think, I don't know if this is RJ's jam.
Yes. So I have since deleted the star rating because I don't like doing that anymore because, as you guys know, people gang up on me because they say, why'd you give this many star ratings? And I say, it is what it is, man. It doesn't mean anything. So I took that away. But yeah, so I think people would think that I would not like this because of the questionable behavior in the closing act. But I think Bad Timing's great. I really do. And I think like that, so like the big kind of thing at the end where you see the ravishment, as Harvey would call it. I think it's like a striking and like weirdly, like it's an uncomfortable scene, but it's also a sad scene. You're just like, like, I don't like, and like it intentionally, you're just like, I don't like anything that's happening here, but you're like, but that's what this story is. It's like, it's leading up to this kind of horrible thing. And I think it would make a difference. Like, so when we watched last time, Aaron was on, we were talking about Fackrell. Like, that's a whole other ball game where I was just like, I don't even know what to think about this shit. But this one, like, I think this is like as I have very infamously not like I don't like Sid and Nancy. I think that movie sucks. This movie, I think, really nails the toxic relationship, I think, a lot better. Whereas like the final kind of thing that happens with Art is very like it's way rougher than anything that happens in Sid and Nancy, like by a long shot. But the way that they present their kind of story together, it's honestly, it's like, it's kind of strange. It's like, it's almost a natural thing that kind of leads to it. And I think it's a little different for me this time because it like as opposed to Jarrett, this was like a rewatch for me. So I knew that going into it. So like when I was watching this weekend, I always tell my wife what the Criterion is to see if she's interested, and she's like, "What are you watching this weekend?" And I was like, "Art Garfunkel rapes a lady," and she's like, "I'm good." And I was like, "Okay." I'm like, I wasn't trying to like spoil it for her, but I know her pretty well. It's like, I'm gonna be upfront with her just so she knows. And he's like, "Yeah, Art Garfunkel's gonna rape some lady," and she's like, "All right, well," she's like, "I'd like to see it, but you go watch your movie." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." But I do think like, I really think that they build this relationship really well throughout the movie. And it's like you guys kind of both pointed out, it's the editing that Nick Roeg throws in here where it's like the back and forth stuff is so well done, where it's just like the really harsh cut to like her getting like tracheotomies and shit like that. And you're just like, oof, that's rough. And it's like showing like the kind of balance between these things. So yeah, I think their relationship's really good, really well done. Art Garfunkel's really good in this, and it's like I said, he is stunning in that one scene. His eyes just have a glisten. It is stunning. Harvey Keitel's awesome. Like his detective work, I actually like. I think it's really well done. It's good detective work. Where the radio station stuff, you're just like, oh, nice. Like, you got it, buddy.
Some real Columbo action.
He's doing some Columbo and some Murder, She Wrote type stuff in here. So like I like all of that stuff. I I think it's a good story. I think it's the characters are good, and the editing is just really well done. The ending is hard to watch, but it's intentional, right? And I think the one thing that like I think the reason I actually do like this more than like some of the other stuff and like violence and abuse is way more prevalent than people think it is, and it's just like even Fat Girl. Stuff like that happens too. Like maybe not as extreme in the ending where it's like serial murders don't just pop out of nowhere and get you.
Don't
usually. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, when they do, they usually do. But like this thing, it's one of those things. It's like it's hard to watch, but it's like, but this is what the real world is like too. So it's like people should see this. Well, I mean, it's like this is what people do to each other, and it's like, do you not like that? Are you uncomfortable? Yeah, you should be, and it's like, so try to be better. You know, don't. It's not that hard to. Do you know what I mean?
Huh? So your read of this is like this is moralistic review.
In a sense, where it's just kind of. Well, I don't know how is it presented? Like, I know it's presented as this like horrible thing, but it's like, yeah, people do that to each other. They do. And it's just like, and I'm not saying that's like, my point is it's a bad thing. And it's like, yeah, you should feel uncomfortable about it. And
they aren't even people. It's almost like this isn't about a relationship so much as it's like about like opposing forces.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, it's just like chaos and order, and like you look at like Harvey Keitel's detective, he doesn't seem that interested in the crime.
No,
his query seems to be more existential query. He wants to know what happened because he's curious about this war between opposing forces. Yeah.
I mean, and he's very invested in what's going on between the two of them. Mm-hmm. That's all he cares about.
There's no moral framework, like at all, for the context of the film. Like,
no.
And I don't mean that. Like, I'm not trying to say that the film is like trying to say this thing. I'm just saying it's like for me personally, when you get to that big kind of moment, I'm just like, yeah, if you feel bad, you should. Because it's like, yes, this is something you should feel bad about, and it is something that happens to real people. That's all I mean by that.
Well, it's a very interactive film in which anyone can insert themselves into, and you know, things from their own life, both good and bad. You know.
Yep. Yeah, and just relationships in general, right? Like, before it gets to the big thing, it's like they do have a lot of kind of back and forth where it's like no matter what kind of relationships you've been in your life, like romantic in some sense, it's like, yeah, you've probably had like moments where you and a person you've been like connected to don't get along, and you have these like weird kind of backs and forths. So I don't know. I like Bad Timing. I think it's a good show. I like the editing is what I'm trying to. That's a long way of me to try to say that. So, it's my 2 cents.
Okay.
So I don't know what you guys think.
Wow, we like it. We like it.
Sure. Did you also find Garfunkel's eyes dazzling in that one scene, Jarrett?
No, not particularly. I mean, you have to give me a screenshot of this scene at a later point. See if I can get.
I'll send it through the Skype here while you continue to talk. But yeah. So what can sometimes happen with a narrative like this, though, too, is and this kind of shows up in the who hates these movies thing, where there's something people think that it's misogynistic, which, like, of course, someone's always going to just call that out, no matter what. But because it's like, oh, it's not this great depiction of this woman. And I'm like, yes, I mean, I don't know. It's not that bad. So I just sent you guys the picture. You have to click on it to see it zoomed up, and then look at his eyes. Look at the dazzle.
Well, see it? That's the lighting on set.
I know it's the lighting, but it makes him look dazzling.
This needs to be brought up. I don't know if you guys saw this at all. Art Garfunkel's girlfriend committed suicide.
Yeah.
Before or after?
During.
Yeah, I did read that.
And then you have, like Nicolas Roeg beginning a courtship with Teresa Russell during this So there's just some psychic energy like in this movie that is just undeniable.
Yeah.
That seems like bad timing, I guess.
Yeah, the production. The film was one of a series of movies greenlit by Tony Williams at the Rank organization, who were increasing their production output. Rank made 8 films over 2 years, being mostly conservative choices, such as the 1978 film The 39 Steps, the third adaptation of the 1915 novel. Bad Timing was the most unusual of the slate of films. While Art Garfunkel was making the film, his girlfriend, Laurie Bird, committed suicide in New York.
Not good.
You know,
Not nice.
well, again,
I think the film ends in New York with
Yep.
the classic Nicolas Roeg ending of like, what? You see her?
Freeze
abruptness.
frame.
Like, hey, is that the dwarf in a red coat?
Uh-huh. I like to like Art Garfunkel's like looking out of the back of the car like a little kid, just like, was that her? Just like a lost puppy, just like, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
It's shit's messed up. You know, life.
Yeah, it's not good. That's what I
Not
was trying
good.
to say, Jarrett. Things aren't
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, people, because you think the whole time that this Art Garfunkel guy, he's a pretty cool cucumber, and you know, he's trying to make sense of this, and he's a little elusive because he's uptight, and then
we learn he's the Egon Schiele.
yeah,
Yeah. Unfortunately.
yeah, as he sadly, weepingly, desperately rapes his overdosing girlfriend. What a guy.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. All right. I do Harvey Keitel's cop tricks of trying to get him to confess. You can tell me. Just get it off your chest.
Just get out. No one cares about this. He's like, it's just you and me. It's just you and me.
And we
Just
haven't talked about Marcus from the Indiana Jones films.
I was going, yes, Denim
yeah.
Elliott.
Yeah.
Cuck Supreme,
Yeah.
your ex-husband. He's very good in it.
Yeah, well, because like when
is.
he first shows up, I'm like, okay, who the fuck is that? I couldn't place him. I was like, I've seen this guy in so
Indiana
many.
Jones, baby.
I know, but like I couldn't place him immediately. I'm like, I've seen this guy in so many things, and I know he's not.
Well, in this movie, he's just so like brittle. He like
Yeah.
seems like he's on the verge of tears. He really does an understated performance that's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's really good.
I do like the character though too, where Art Garfunkel, of course, can't find her because she's like kind of run off and she's ducking him, and he's like, "Well, I'm just trying to find her. Where could she be?" He calls the cuck up. Hey, you know, do you have any idea where she might be? He's like, "Well, you know, I honestly don't know where she is." But you know, I just fuck off. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I can't wait till she like loses interest in you entirely, and we can move on beyond this. Because I mean, which is like, that's good. That they don't like wind up with like some sort of bond between the two of them. They just avoid that completely. Because why would they have anything in common other than her?
He's definitely not like Sam Neill in Until the End of the World, who's just like, if you guys have seen that, he's just like all too happy to be this cucked ex-husband. He's like, yeah, I'll tag along at a distance on your adventure and be supportive of everything.
Mm-hmm. I also like when he's talking to him on the phone and he kind of just puts the phone down for a while to eat some cheese and he picks it back up. He's like, were you listening? He's like, yeah, I got all of that. I got it.
It was one of those old timey
very,
phones though, where you could actually
uninterested.
hear him.
I mean, probably. I just liked the motion of him putting the phone down to eat some cheese and
Yeah.
then it's like, I get this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no urgency in
sense.
this for him.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk about this movie from 4 years prior, The Man Who Fell to Earth from 1976. The tagline, power, space, time, and a visitor. Synopsis.
Okay.
Thomas Jerome Newton is an alien who has come to Earth in search of water to save his home planet. Aided by lawyer Oliver Farnsworth, Thomas uses his knowledge of advanced technology to create profitable inventions. While developing a method to transport water, Thomas meets Mary Lou, a quiet hotel clerk. No, that's not accurate at all. And begins to fall in love with her. Just as he is ready to leave Earth, Thomas is intercepted by the U.S. government, and his entire plan is threatened.
I mean, that's a bit of a long synopsis. That could have been shortened up a little bit. It's not totally accurate either, which is another thing. But you know.
I guess that's a thing with that's the thing with Nick Roeg movies, though. Is sometimes it feels like the plot is secondary, and you just let the movie just happen. You just watch it, man. So, Man of Earth is a movie I had seen before. I learned about this movie honestly before I even really knew who David Bowie was.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I mean, so I watched this.
What do you mean?
I mean, he was just I don't know. I didn't really know who David Bowie was. It was like early high school, and I was reading Danny Perry's Cult Movies, and The Man Who Fell to Earth was written up in there. And of course, they would talk about David Bowie. And for me, like, I just wasn't much of a music person at all as a kid. And I was like, what's this movie about this alien business? And it was a long time until I actually bothered watching it. And like maybe 4 or 5 years, I watched Walkabout. And the first time I watched Walkabout, like we talked about way back when, that movie like enraptured me. I thought, holy shit, this is like the weirdest way of making a movie I've ever seen. This like the majestic Australian landscape. And I was like, I want to watch more movies by this Nick Roeg guy. And by that point, I kind of knew of David Bowie because I mean, outside of Labyrinth, like I was like, oh, he's the Goblin King, right. I know this chap. And then a couple of David Bowie songs here and there, but again, kind of on the periphery of my experience. And then I bought The Man Who Fell to Earth on DVD. I can't remember, it wasn't the Criterion of it at the time. I think it was Anchor Bay put it out in like this like cardboard eco package thing, and I watched it blind. And it is, when you think David Bowie science fiction alien movie, I guess this is exactly what should come to mind, but it wasn't what I wanted at the time. And I do think that is a thing with the people who are watching this movie now and just hate it a lot. But I watched this. I had no idea who Rip Torn was. In fact, I'm like, that's a name. Like, it's
the best name as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Yeah, it's because
I used to confuse him with the comedian with confetti.
Oh, Rip Taylor.
Rip Taylor.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's
yeah.
Rip
100%.
Rip T. I mean, which one's which? So I didn't really know anybody in this movie at all. I mean, other than like, oh, it's that David Bowie guy, which. It turned out that my introduction to The Man Who Fell to Earth came from comics because about a few years earlier, Mike Allred did this comic called Red Rocket 7.
Oh, God.
Which is like so much like... Because Mike Allred loves him some David Bowie and clearly liked this movie a great deal. And he made his own movies, like was it Astro-esque, and which was like this part of this multi-part project with like he had a band called The Gear, which was him doing like his we're aliens from another planet.
That guy can draw, but he's like such a fucking like square Mormon.
Oh yeah, I own it all because he draws so good.
Bowie? That's surprising.
That's the thing. He writes. I remember just being like such a conservative take on like rock stardom, or like I remember there being this kind of like anti-LSD message in it, and it was just like it was just so latently conservative. Like he's such a fucking like mod little cosplayer.
It's so strange because like Madman is clearly David Bowie. But it's strange that this dude that you're describing is very conservative, but it's like Bowie was like the champion of like fluid sexuality. So strange, very, very strange. Michael Allred.
Well, it means he has.
I think I have a poster of his. Go ahead.
So Mike Allred was my introduction, probably really to David Bowie without me really knowing it, and this was, I mean, this was as I was coming up, and no one was telling me, hey, you should listen to David Bowie, which a lot of people, RJ, I don't know if you know this, I know you're a Bowiesman now, but there was a period of time where he was kind of he was old hat. He would show up on like a David Lynch soundtrack, like Lost Highway and stuff like that, and was regarded by people in the know. But I feel like he had like kind of a dip, and then he went out high. So,
well, David Bowie, and I'm a fan, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
He and this is actually kind of like a testament to him, but he's like a meme now. You know, after he died, he became a meme. And that's actually kind of like a next level of celebrity where people know who this person is and they don't know why.
Right.
Like Marilyn Monroe. Everyone knows who Marilyn Monroe is. Doesn't mean they've seen her movies.
Yeah.
Or really know anything about her. They just had this. It's just you are super famous and super iconic. You kind of like have this. If you become immortal like that, it's very much removed from the reality of the work you did.
Yeah.
And Bowie, I think for most people is like that. I remember when the last time I actually had a job, some chick was talking about, she was a new coworker. She was talking about how much she loved David Bowie. And I was like, oh, this is somebody I could talk to, you know, and I tried to have a conversation with her. And it like became like abundantly clear she actually didn't really know who David Bowie was. I was like, what's your favorite album? And she like did it. It was just like a deer in the headlights. I was like, oh, I was supposed to actually know something about this person to say I really like them.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten that. Oh, what? I think I'm out of sync with you guys a little bit. But
go ahead.
I was gonna say I've gotten that too, where I've seen people wearing like Bowie shirts, and I'm a big Bowie guy, and like so the reason I like him is because my older brother listened to David Bowie, so I listened to David Bowie as like a little kid, and that's why I like him so much. But I've seen people wearing like Bowie shirts, and I'd be like, hey, David Bowie. I was like, what's your favorite album? Kind of the same as you, and not to be like one of those people that like challenges someone. It's like, oh yeah, you got a shirt. What's your album? I was just like genuinely curious. It's like, sure. Oh yeah, I love Bowie. And then you ask them, and they're like, I don't know. I like the whatever album has this song on it, and it's like that's fine too. It's like you don't have to know the albums, but I feel like I'm always a little bit let down when I see someone wearing Bowie stuff, or they say they're a Bowie fan. It's like, I love Bowie. This is what I really love about him. And then other people are like, oh, I don't know what any of that means. And you go, oh, okay.
They really... Some of the information's hard to come by.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because now people are, I really loved his work in Venture Brothers.
I mean, I did love his work in Venture Brothers. Yeah. It was terrific. That and I mean, Bowie has all sorts of terrific work, Jarrett. Terrific work in television series.
Wow. And what about The Man Who Fell to Earth?
What about it?
Yeah. So what about it? So
let me get this out of the way.
Sure.
So I saw this movie the first time in high school. So like, you know, over 20 years ago. Then I saw it again. I don't know when exactly, but it's still some years ago. So I've seen the movie, but in preparation for guesting on your show, I think it's out of print from Criterion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not on the channel either, so I was glad that I actually owned this one because I was like, I don't want to have to like do something to get
not on
this
the channel. So I got it from the library. I think it's that Anchor Bay edition.
Yep.
And it was scratched the fuck up. Yeah. So I was actually like unable to watch like a solid half hour right in the middle of the movie.
Oh.
So, but I have seen the movie before. But just let's get this out of the way. If I'm not remembering something, maybe it's from that, like literally right in the middle, like a half hour, just gone. Couldn't see it.
I feel like this is the kind of movie though that you might be able to get away with that. I mean, like
you could do that. Too. Yep.
Because I think like there's like that moment that comes where when he's basically kidnapped by the government and when he's just put into storage, and then they kind of begin the process of like experimenting on him using his own like wealth to keep him there. It seems to be the implication, because there's like this movie is all about like inference from the audience, because this movie doesn't even care like whether or not you're like there's no stakes. You're not kind of like, oh, I really hope he gets away to like help his family, because eventually there's a shot where you're like, oh, they're dead, like, or sleeping. That'd be the charitable interpretation. It's like, they're asleep. They're just sleeping on the desert planet, waiting for him to come back. Somehow, even though the technology and of how he arrived, there's a track that's suggested that he's like being slingshotted through time, I guess, to probably get somewhere closer and sooner. And that's why there's these time loops and time distortions where you get to see some like shots of like Appalachian people like out on the field being all startled when they see a locomotive. But so this movie,
well, it's that and then also there's that line he has where they talk about like when they're like, what happens when you drink? He's like, I see things. And like he talks about seeing other visitors, because he's like there's other aliens on Earth too, you just haven't noticed them. So I think that's part of it as well. Like when he sees those visions of things, it's also like he's seeing the other aliens, but other people don't see them because some of them are separated by time. And that's like one of the big concepts of this too, is that the time to someone like him is it doesn't mean the same thing to time like us, because he is like semi-immortal, so it's like time doesn't mean as much to him. And
is he a human from the future and not an alien at all?
It's possible. I think in the book itself, like I think they say it's like he's from another planet, but like, and in the movie he does too. But like it's vague enough that you could fill that in yourself if you wanted to. I think that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like if you want to kind of say that, there's nothing against it, nothing that says that's wrong.
Because there's because at the beginning of the movie we have like the Superman-esque montage of a ship traveling, because this movie came out actually, because when did Superman come out, the Richard Donner one? Is it 76 as well?
70 something,
around the same.
Let me check it out.
So it's curious that like you have these movies about I mean, obviously Superman as a concept been around for 78, so it predates it.
78.
So
yeah.
There you go. So this is doing this kind of a Superman rift here in 76 before the movie repopularized the Superman mythos. And every time you do a Superman comic, it has to open up with the goddamn space pod being launched to Earth every single time. So we get space pod travels, a suggestion that it lands into a lake, and then a man fully clothed is kind of making his way across like a rock quarry, and that's Rip Torn observing him, right?
I don't know.
No. So that is a different person. And the reason I know this is because it's really hard to catch, but he comes back at the very end. He's the guy who basically lets him out of the government, like when he's captured and like set in that room, and man comes in, and then that's the next scene is when David Bowie is out and Rip Torn as a really old man comes and visit him. But that's the guy who basically releases him. And so what it is David Bowie's like, no one saw me land. No one knows I'm here.
Right.
That person did. And he's kind of like a mystery. Like you never find out who that person is, but that person observes him. And then near the end, that person is there. And then I like from what I took from it was that person releases him, and then he goes off, and then he sees Rip Torn again later. But it's not the same guy.
Because
not the same guy.
5. Like the guy from Halloween 5 that's watching everything.
It just kind of there, the observer.
Yeah.
So
you ought to.
You ought to.
Yes. So it was one of those things when I was watching, because I didn't rewind it, because I'm like, Rip Torn's hair's all long, and then the rest of the movie his hair is short, and you're like, is that supposed to be Rip Torn? And I never like stopped to actually further investigate that. It's because I felt like this is just one of those mysteries in this movie, isn't it? Like where you're just like, and probably whatever I'm going to read probably won't be the most satisfying answer.
No.
Yeah. So again, the only reason I actually know that is because I watched the supplements, and it was the the screenwriter, he was describing that. So that's not like like some crazy insight that I have. I saw the screenwriter describe that exact scene. That's the only reason I know anything about that. But they also do talk about how this movie has lots of clues, but that some of them have no end or anything like that. So it's kind of like we gave it to you, but
like a J.J. Abrams comic or a movie. It's like, well,
exactly. Yeah, just like a bad robot production. It's all there, but it's not actually.
And it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Like, I didn't know that until 2 hours ago when I watched this thing, but I know now. So there, I don't know. I was just saying that I didn't know that any of that shit either. This is the one time that I watched the supplements, and that's what I took from it. So
did you listen to the commentary track with David Bowie?
It was not available on the Criterion that I have.
Oh.
Because I would have watched it if possible. Maybe I should double check, but I looked at the maybe it was on the main disc. So I have the DVD kind of like clamshell of this, and I put in the main one with the movie, and then I put in the second one and watched the supplements on that. I didn't even think to look at the main DVD. Maybe it was on there. Fuck, I probably just missed it all. I would have watched it. My bad.
Son of a dog. So
it was maybe on there. I don't know.
Does anyone know anything about the author of the original novel, Walter Tevish?
I do.
Southern guy.
From Kentucky, but not original. Yeah, so also from the supplements, Jarrett. So that's
some novels he's got under his belt. The Hustler and The Color of Money and The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah. So
doesn't the Criterion?
Go ahead.
Doesn't the Criterion edition come with the novel?
Mine didn't. I don't know. I can show you guys. I don't know what copy of mine I have. I have a Criterion copy, but
I didn't think there was an edition like in a slipcase with like the novel in it.
Yeah, that sounds oddly
like they
familiar.
did with Shortcuts.
Yeah.
I'll check mine out in a second here if we take another break. But I don't know if the novel's in mine. But there is
why it's out of print because it was just like fucking expensive to keep it in print. I don't know.
I suspect it's a rights thing because whatever the company owns it, British Lion Films, maybe they're just like super stingy about how it's distributed, and like it's like, oh, it's only for a limited time, and then they just pull the cord whenever they want it back, and it just bounces around.
Yeah, could be that. So I actually did there on the supplements that I did watch. There's an audio interview with the author of the book. So he did this, and he did The Hustler, Queen's Gambit, and the screenwriter or the screenplay writer was saying that like the only other novel he thinks is actually really good is Queen's Gambit. So this guy is from Kentucky, and apparently Hustler and The Man Who Fell to Earth are about his own alcoholism. So they're both about it, where it's like, so with The Hustler, apparently this guy, when he was writing books, he also tried to be a hustler, but he was like, I wasn't very good. He's like, I never won any money. He's like, I just tried, but I was an alcoholic. And this was actually, it kind of cut to the screenplay writer, and this was the screenplay writer's interpretation of these two sources, where he said The Hustler is about an old alcoholic with a young person who's like naive to it. And then in Man Who Fell to Earth, it was about a guy who was sober, which is David Bowie, and then a younger person, the hotel attendee, the lady Mary Lou, who was not an alcoholic but pushed alcohol. And then apparently the big theme of the Man Who Fell to Earth is liquid. So it's like people are always drinking water or alcohol, and it's like this kind of weird thing in between. The writer of the book himself didn't hit that as much, but he was just like, yeah, he's like, I like liquor. He's like, so I wrote about it, kind of thing.
It definitely comes across in the film. Like, you don't usually see alcoholism portrayed in that, I think, authentic way, which I think the movie does get at it, like this kind of repetitive, claustrophobic grind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's there quite a bit. So it's like I said, the author of the book was less like, He's like, it wasn't totally what I was trying to do, but it is an element of it. But the screenplay writer was just like, oh yeah, he's like, this movie's about alcoholism, and it's like, okay, interesting.
Well, yeah, there's from what I'm reading here, a writer, James Salas, declared The Man Who Fell to Earth was among the finest science fiction novels, saying, just beneath the surface, it might read as a parable of the 50s into the Cold War. Beneath that is an evocation of existential loneliness, a Christian fable, a parable of the artist. Ooh. Above all, perhaps, as the wisest, truest representation of alcoholism ever written.
Oh, shit.
Which is really good that when they make a fail TV pilot that turns into a made-for-television film, they completely remove that utterly. Yeah. And it's like, oh, he gets drunk off of tomato juice.
Oh, yeah, that's the remake that we watched, Aaron Lange. That thing was interesting.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, but
I don't recommend it.
No.
I'm morbidly curious.
Yeah.
David Bowie shows up as an alien. He's wandering around the southern United States. I'm not sure if it's the South quite yet. It has that Arizona vibe to me.
Yeah, he's close to New Mexico, Arizona.
Yeah, and he's got some rings, which he's able to continuously sell off for like a little bit of startup money. And things start coming together for him. He knows a guy. He finds a guy played by Buck Henry, his lawyer, he needs a man who knows about patents. He's the best in the world. It doesn't matter how David Bowie gains this access. I assume he goes to the library, much like Aaron did this week, and just like access this information as you need it. And he has like observation abilities because he's got those like lenticular screens that you can just see everything and anything you need on your desert planet, and so you can learn things. You can figure out this is the technology that they'll need. This is how we're going to benefit things. We're going to be like Elon Musk, and we're going to build rocket ships and get rich, and then question mark profit. So he goes, finds his patent lawyer. He approaches him, makes him an offer he can't refuse, and says, this is what's going to be. You're going to take a cut. And it just like jumps ahead, and you're like, yeah, he did that. So the movie, like a lot of these, I think of like Alex Cox's movie Walker, which is a period piece, but it's just like, who gives a shit about like accuracy of like the period being depicted, where it's like you have like men in the 1890s wearing like digital watches and stuff like that. He's just like, I don't care. And so this movie doesn't feel like it's part of any particular period of time. It's not like, oh, it's definitely the 1950s. It's always like, it just always feels like it's 1976 and we're on this treadmill of time. Everybody's aging, but the world remains the same, as does David Bowie. Yeah, Thomas Jerome Newton. What's the Jerome in reference to?
I don't know that, but I do know that the Tommy is another
Edison.
Who reference.
Well, I think Thomas Edison and then Isaac Newton. So I'm imagining Jerome is another scientist.
It's that. But so what Nick Roeg did as well was he threw in some Tommy, like the Who's album Tommy. It was a bunch of stuff in there, and I don't know if you guys heard, but there's a few instances in this movie where there's Tommy, can you hear me? It's from the Who. Nick, and like I noticed that, and I was just like, that's probably not actually a reference to the Who. And then I was watching the supplements, they're like, oh yeah, that's a Who thing, and I was like, oh shit, it is. And the screenwriter was just like, yeah, we threw that in there. We didn't think anyone would actually notice, and we thought if they did, that's cool, and if not, no big deal. It's like cat economics. They go where they need to, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, it's I think it's like half scientists and half the Who, for some reason.
I did feel a little bit of tension when watching this, where the Newton character goes to the American South, and it's like, of course, there's like those sheriffs that want to check the license plates. They're from New York. And you're like, uh-oh, is this going to turn into a Southern hospitality movie? And I didn't remember that at all. But no, it's all fine. This guy's rich. He's like, he's got no records. He gets this new license plates. Now he's got a whole new name, Sussex. Yeah.
He's also the right skin tone, so he wasn't going to get in trouble.
He goes beyond that. He's like alabaster.
A little alabaster clam, but he's got the paper, so he's good.
That's right. Then we get introduced to his love interest, Mary Lou, played by Candy Clark.
Yep.
And like she is just immediately endearing, I think. And you kind of already know the direction this is all going to go. She takes him up an elevator, which is a big no-no for this guy, and it's not exactly clear why that would be. Like later on, when Rip Torn's using secret cameras to observe like what we're dealing with, and it's like, oh, he's like not even a body, he's like this like energy signature, which again is interesting. And there's like there's no payoff to this. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's just like a weird thing. And it's just this really curious graphic that doesn't look at all what an X-ray would look like. But it's like, that's a really cool image.
I think the only like payoff, I guess, would be that it's later when they have the confrontation where Bowie is just like, he's like, I know you're suspicious of me. You know I'm an alien. And Rip Torn's like, do I? And he's like, yeah, I know you do. You took X-rays of me. So, and then the X-ray thing later on with his eyes. I guess that's the only kind of setup of those two things.
Right. Like, I guess like you're just like, what is he? What's going? When are they going to figure out what kind of alien? It's like, who cares? Who cares? The movie barely is interested in that. And there's this like suggestion of like, there's an idea he's got. He's going to come to Earth and they're going to retrieve water, which is I'm told that in the synopsis. I don't know if that's directly.
Like, how are you supposed to take water then to affect the planet? Like, water's heavy.
Yeah, on a practical level,
load your rocket ship up with enough water. Like, I know it's like maybe it's a stupid thing to like ask, but there's just like a lot of stuff like that in this movie. Like when doing like medical experiments on him, like if he's still in his like human makeup, like the wig hasn't come off. Yeah. So,
I know exactly what you mean with that stuff. I think the water thing, like, it's kind of weird. Like you can tell there's the water is important because like there's that whole scene where he first gets water. There's like a whole like thing about him drinking it, and like he talks about drinking water. But then like I never knew the plan was to send water back. I always thought his plan was to bring those people to Earth. So I was confused by that too when you read the synopsis about sending water. I was like, that's what he was trying to do? I was like, I didn't get that at all.
Well, because in the plot here, his wealth is needed to construct a space vehicle with the intention of shipping water back to his home planet. Maybe they just need a little bit of water to get themselves going. It's like a jump start.
Kickstarter?
Yeah. You can fund the planet's Patreon with one glass of water.
With these types of movies, there's always like, something that doesn't necessarily make sense. You just like, let's go along with that. Like, forget about that, and it's not that important. But this movie has a lot of stuff like that.
Oh right. Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's just like the entire movie is stuff like this, and so it's kind of a mess.
It is. Well, you have Rip Torn, who's like whole beginning arc is he's kind of like presented as this like loser professor who isn't living up to his like potential as this like chemist, and like when it comes to fuel, I guess is where it leads him because he's just like too busy banging 18-year-old students like all the time, and he's getting older and they're staying the same age. And it's like, of course, like you go, man, Rip Torn's so cool. I don't know, Aaron, have you ever seen the movie Payday, starring him as like the country singer?
No.
Oh, it's so good. I highly recommend it. It was a combination of Payday and watching the Larry Sanders Show that I think like Rip Torn's so good. And so when I first watched this movie, I was like, who is this guy? What kind of name's Rip Torn? Like, no, that can't be real. And he was just this man he'd show up in like Freddy Got Fingered, and it was just this like rough kind of goofball.
The scene from Maidstone, the Norman Maids movie.
No.
I've never seen the movie. I've seen the scene. It was one of like, it's probably like the absolute pinnacle of like 1960s excess where like Norman Mailer's like, I'll make a movie. And he just like cleared out like 5 estates in the Hamptons and just had like this gigantic crew and like made a movie without a script. And Norman Mailer acts in it, and him and Rip Torn were like fucking wasted, and they got into a fight on film,
Right.
and Rip Torn hit Norman Mailer in the head with a hammer, like for real, and if they're grappling with each other, and like Norman Mailer like bites off a chunk of Rip Torn's ear, and like
Lord.
Norman Mailer's family is there, like his children are like crying, and like Norman Mailer's wife is just like cannot believe what's going on, and she's just like runs over and she's just like, stop it, you know. And then they kind of break up, and like Rip Torn's dazed, and he's just like holding this hammer, like, I don't know why I did this.
What is this movie called?
Called Maidstone.
Oh, I'm gonna watch this son of a bitch for sure.
Yeah, I think
I mean, if you type that into like YouTube, it'll like autocomplete like hammer fight with Rip Torn.
That sounds awesome.
It's really disturbing.
So, do you guys want to know who the original person, not Rip Torn, but who they wrote the role for? Was
who was it?
James Corden of Maverick fame.
Oh,
so
Coburn. James Coburn.
James Coburn. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like James Corden. I'm like, who the hell?
James Coburn. Sorry, I mixed.
Like, who the hell? Who's that?
It's like 3 a.m. in Cleveland. My mind's all.
Your brain is in Cleveland.
I've been on Cleveland time for a week just to prepare for Aaron Lange's arrival. So
considerate of you.
I am.
Do you remember when Rip Torn got busted for like robbing that bank?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's like I was
three in the morning or something like that.
Well, then there's like the defense was like he thought it was his house, and you're like, what? But then didn't he die from complications of Alzheimer's?
Yeah.
So like maybe like this has to have been like an Alzheimer's thing, but like he was already he was a maniac though. So, but when a maniac has Alzheimer's, I mean, what do you get?
No more than the mayor of Cleveland. Didn't he try to rob a bank too?
His brother.
Okay. It's a fine detail, but it's an important one, I suppose.
Dear. Yeah. So yeah, Rip Torn. Yeah, I think you read the plot description on Wikipedia, and they're just like he gets a job there, and then he slowly becomes Thomas's confidant. Where it's like he like tricks his way in. You're like, no, he gets picked and brought in, and you get the chamber for the ship. That like I think it's like a fairly. This isn't the most like weirdly iconic movie, but there are still images. Like I was watching this on my laptop, and I was just taking screenshots because there's like these scenes where like, man, that is some gorgeous cinematography. Like I think,
like stirring a martini with like a shiny revolver.
Yeah.
The bit where when the Mary Lou leaves the hotel room at like dawn, it's just like gorgeous. Like her walking out of this small town, you're just like, man, that's just like beautiful. And there's just like
magic hour.
What's with that really weird Terry Southern cameo? Did you catch that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like when they're gonna do like the rocket launch, and like it's like the and like they're like, and there's Terry Southern, and it's Terry Southern. They actually say there's Terry Southern,
just in the crowd.
It feels like such an English thing though. I don't know. The English seem to really like Terry Southern. I don't know. It seems to come up often.
He was friends with William Burroughs too. He was just like. I think he was just a real like social butterfly.
Well, because it's like what did he do? Magic Christian, which is got it. It's got all those guys in it, and Easy Rider. Yeah, he was just in that right place, right time.
Worked with Stanley Kubrick.
Yep. And I was always thinking of Magic Christian. Peter Sellers, who we just talked about, and of course, a lot of those Englishmen. Yeah, I don't know. It's just hey, he was there, and it's like hey, it's a happening. You want to show up to this movie? It's like, sure.
Yeah, it's just like, what, Terry Southern? Like, it's because it's not that kind of movie. You know, it's like a Zoolander cameo. Like where you say the person's name. Like, hey, it's Billy Zane.
Hey, it's David Bowie.
Right, exactly.
What do you think about this like ongoing like cute joke that David Bowie's playing a character who's really bad at making music?
I took it as it was. It's like,
see...
is it a little on the nose? Yeah, but you know,
because you get to see him like half singing while going to church as he's introduced to church.
Oh yeah, like rictus grin.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was funny.
I was fine with it. Yep.
Okay. Something out there.
Yep.
But then he releases the album.
Yeah, The Visitor.
Which is just like, they really just kind of like throw in there. And you know who was obsessed with that was Philip K. Dick.
Like that element?
Yeah.
Yes. And it becomes like a plot point in his novel Valis.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so, well, get ready.
Oh.
So,
ooh, shit.
Philip K. Dick's exegesis.
Yeah.
So I got out the old index and looked up David Bowie, and his name shows up quite a bit in here. Mostly just in passing. So are you guys familiar with the exegesis?
I know it a little bit. I've never read it. I know it. I know it, but
it's not something you really read. But for anyone listening, it was just Philip K. Dick's like private notes trying to explain to himself a mystical experience he had. And I mean, it's like a million fucking pages. And this book is collects kind of like the parts that are like even remotely accessible. But what do we have here? Where is this? Talk amongst yourselves. Well, here it is.
Okay.
oh, yeah, there you go.
Here it is. Sudden total realization as I was falling asleep. My writing isn't messages smuggled into this spurious world to tell us our situation. No, we are in a prison, and my writing is messages smuggled out. We're trying through such as my writing to contact outside help. And outside help answering the messages recondition found in my writing, like Bowie's LP record put on the communications media to reach his wife. So he just mentions this record from Man Who Fell to Earth.
Movie.
Like, yeah. I mean, like, this wasn't writing he did to be published. This were his own notes. And throughout is that part of Man Who Fell to Earth over and over again, like just as an aside. So I don't know if that's of any use or interest, but
so is it because like one of those things that I think of when I think of Philip K. Dick, and I'm not sure if this is specifically his idea or one that he fell into, was this idea that we're always living in like 34 AD, where it's like we've never like time just kind of keeps looping back over and over and over again, and like, he had this like this thought experiment idea that like we're stuck in the year 34 CE, and like whatever it is, the Romans or something like that, and things keep repeating over and again. And I could imagine if he was thinking about that watching this movie, he'd be like, yeah, this makes total sense that David Bowie's character is standing still and everything else is just moving around him, if he thinks about time in that particular way, which then would kind of tie into this idea that he would be maybe from the future, and just like time is non-linear and he's just standing in place, which is again like another writerly idea that pops up I think in a lot of science fiction. Like I can think this is like very much like Alan Moore, who I often bring up. He is like a big Nick Roeg fan, I think, because of the way like he deploys those like cinematic elements of Roeg's of like disjunctive editing in his comics as well. The way he focuses on things, like, and you get a little bit of that in these two movies with the insects, which I think is like a Roeg staple of like he just zones in on like, hey, here's just like a little sample of like the world that has nothing to do with anything else. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but yeah, I could definitely see Philip. This actually kind of feels like something. Like it would be like an adaptation of a Philip K. Dick, or it feels more Philip K. Dick than I'm sure what Walt Tevish imagined. Yeah. But so he has that moment where it's like, I don't know what the story is that like being on Earth drags him down, and he kind of falls into, he wallows in humanity, and he's like, you're supposed to be focused on this goal of like saving your family or like saving your planet for whatever reason, even though it's like, is that even a reasonable goal? Is that something that could ever happen? And then of course he's dealing with this breakdown with this relationship with his girlfriend, wife, and who like she takes the money in the bad way, I guess. So she forgets about her upbringing and immediately just slides into the rich life and of entitlement. But then she becomes the isolated person living on this like island, not island, but like this little shore in the middle of nowhere as the construction continues on, even though there seems to be no sight no end in sight. And then he makes the reveal that he is an alien as he pops his eyeballs off and shows off his smooth body, nippleless body.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's like that weird, like lingering shot of her peeing herself, which I'm just like,
Yeah, that's.
I don't know. It was
the strangest scene in the whole movie. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Like, gotta zoom in on her, losing control.
Yeah. It's the most unnecessary and out of place scene, I think, in the entire movie.
It's pretty visceral. I mean, it really. Yeah. He's really trying to sell the fact that she's like terrified.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you watch the TV movie, and she's "Thank you for sharing this with me."
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, she's like, "Oh, oops," and then she says, "I'm sorry, I got scared. I won't do that again."
And he goes, "On my planet, I'm considered fairly attractive."
So who's the Bowie character in the TV?
This jobber named Lewis Smith, who is like part of this like period of time in the 80s where they're kind of like, hey, you know these like Paul Reiser, Jerry Seinfeld, like Albert Brooks, Jewish leading men, Steven Gutenberg. This is Lewis Smith, ladies and gentlemen, and he can carry a show. You're like, no, like this guy like does not have it, because like he also reminds me of like guy who plays Sheriff Truman in Twin Peaks. What's his name?
Oh, a little bit. Yeah. I thought he looked like Jerry Seinfeld more than anything, but
here, I'm looking up this guy.
Yeah, he does look like the guy from Twin Peaks as well.
Yeah,
the hair,
the
short, curly kind of poof.
Michael Onke, that's who I'm thinking of. It was this look that movies were trying to say, hey, this is what ladies want. They want big hair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, movie. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So finally, Bowie's back on track. Because why don't we just talk about it like this is David Bowie's story?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a big blast off, but no, the government is going to step in because you can't. You're too big for your britches. We got to stop this, which is hilarious because I don't think would ever happen. But we do get this weird movie cliche that I notice in a lot of like 70s movies of like the duo hitman, which I'm like, I guess it's just like a Hemingway thing, right, from The Killers. But James Bond had these like hitmen. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Well, Christ, I think there's like the two James Bond movies that had these like the duo hitmen. Sometimes they're a couple and then they deserve to die because it seems to be this crazy undercurrent in these movies. Here, they're just these goons with crash helmets so they can like just get hit in the head all day long.
These helmets are so weird.
Yeah,
it's so strange. I love it, but it's so strange.
I think that's the weirdest part of the movie, which is saying something.
Yeah.
It's like glitter helmets.
Yeah.
I like the presentation of it where it's just these two dudes putting helmets on and you're like, what's going on? What's going on here? And then even when the scene plays out and you see that they're the hitmen, you're still just like, what's up with the glitter helmets? Like they could have put anything on their heads, but I don't know. I actually like it, but it's super weird. You're just like, what is this?
And maybe when they went by the general store, those were the ones that were on sale. And they're like, these ones are cheaper than the all black ones that would look way more badass. No, we're only use these once, and then we're gonna get rid of them. So let's get the cheap ones that are sparkly. And then you get like some real fake ass body dumping.
I love that.
That's something. That's like for a movie of the stature. That is like one fake ass body.
I think more egregious than that, it's not the body dump. It's when the weight set gets thrown out the window and it's kind of like moving in the wind, and you're just like, okay.
And why would they throw the weights out the window?
Yeah, I mean that's what makes the least sense of all. It's like, why would they throw that out? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, because I think they're trying to stage like this was like a homicide suicide,
crime of passion,
a quarrel between two men. And I think that's like that would be the setup, and then again you infer they fill in the gaps of like, oh, this is why they're doing it, maybe. But that's just left there saying because they're going to close up those little loose ends of people who would even care to ask what happened to the recluse, the Howard Hughes like recluse with his spruce moose, and yeah, then he's kidnapped and he's taken into his own house, or like this this complex that he's just kind of
Some
being
place.
experimented on. We have this line kind of just before that happens, but like, well, I can't feel like angry toward anything. I don't experience emotions like that, so he's not too stressed about it. And then so you have that.
They keep him with alcohol.
Yeah, I mean that's all he needs, and he can do whatever you want to him. He doesn't care. Just keep him soused and on his suspended bed.
They make him gin martinis all day. He's perfectly content. He's like, I'm fine.
And
Got teeth to watch and
little bit of a nipple mutilation, and but you can watch The Third Man.
For nipple mutilation?
Well, you get that. I mean, you have to get the nipple mutilation.
I prefer mine a little bit more real.
Okay.
Criterion Creeps nipple mutilation. That's on our After Dark Patreon, if anyone's interested. Yeah.
One little thing that I appreciated in this movie, this is just me, I like the exposition by way of license plates. Because like nowadays you just get like a title that comes up that tells you like exactly where you are, maybe like a like a geographical marker. This is just like license plates. It's so classic.
Yeah, I'm with you.
A note here: what is up with elevation being noted on city signs?
I don't know actually.
I want to know if you were in those areas, like the air's thinner.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I because nowadays
part of the country, but maybe it's like something you'd want to know.
Right. Maybe. It's something I'm like, I guess if I wanted to know, I'd look it up. I mean, when I've traveled, I never even thought about it. And you're going to have to, if you're going somewhere, you're going to have to deal with it no matter what. It's not like really, you can't do anything about it once you're there. It's too late. I guess by the time you get to the sign, you're like, I've gone too many sea levels.
When I lived in Colorado, every place you'd go have the elevation, and it was very like up front. It was like this many miles, and you're like, okay.
Did you find that I've heard like it kind of fucks with you when you're drinking?
So I never found that, but you got to keep in mind we're Canadian, and we start drinking when, I don't know about Jarrett, but I think I was like 12 or 13 when I started, so I was I was fine by the time I got there. But I don't know, like we're a little bit elevated. We're not in the mountains, but we are a little bit up. So I think like where I moved was pretty similar to like home for me, so it wasn't that big of a difference.
I heard you get worse hangovers from it. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you do get up there, it affects your like blood and then your blood oxygen as well. So like there's like an actual scientific reason for it. But where I went wasn't that far off from what I normally am, so it wasn't a big issue for me. But I could see it if you do like big kind of like in betweens, and that would probably mean more. But no.
Another note I had here was tucked shirts into shorts.
Have you never?
No, I don't think so. That's because he's got some. David Bowie is he's a thin
fashion
man, and he has he has like that puzzle shirt, that like wine style puzzle shirt, and he's just got those tucked right into his like very large like capri style shorts with his flip flops.
Awesome, I love it. I love it.
I'm sure.
Completely coked out of his mind while making that movie.
Yeah. So it's a look.
He's like a little sailor boy. It's hilarious, and I think it's funny.
He's comfortable. He's very comfortable.
Wouldn't you want to be comfortable if you were making a movie all day?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's definitely worse acting jobs if you're playing aliens. You got to wear all these crazy prosthetics. And he barely had to do that. It's only when he's like, "Yeah, I'm an alien." Then I'm going to go back to being David Bowie for a little while because I kind of look like one. This strange androgynous being. I
mean, he did have to like put some kind of like plastic contact into his eyeball and take it out with tweezers. So that would have been uncomfortable.
Yeah, that one time. Then I made a note here about that black wig on Candy Clark, which of course she tears it right off. I think there's like when he's leaving her or they're breaking up at the back on the lake, and she has this like ridiculously bad black wig. It's so big, and I was like, what is up with that? And then I'm like, is this because we're aging her? But no, she just tears it off, and you're okay, I see. It's supposed to be a lousy wig. And then,
it's just wig play.
But I will say that I thought that the aging makeup in this wasn't too bad.
It's not.
I think for the time, it was not too bad.
Old Rip Torn looks not bad.
Looks accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. But, I mean, so, like, other than that, I mean, the movie ends on this downer note. Of course it does. Of, like, who cares? Why bother? And it's like the bottle wins. And there's this shrugging resignation of just like, yeah, that's just what it is. And that downturned hatch final shot that just keeps rolling has stuck in my mind, and I didn't realize it. I'm like, oh, that's why I think about this every once in a while. So, yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I was engaged with the entire time watching it. It's a interesting movie. I think it's like an unsolvable puzzle, and you bring whatever you bring to it. So I don't know. It's people's mileage is going to vary a great deal. Watching this, I mean, does it deliver on the Nicolas Roeg Alien movie? That's a heady, thoughtful movie, or kind of just all over the place mess? Yeah, I think so. But I mean, that might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you want out of it. I liked it though. I think I do like this more than Bad Timing in some ways, but that's also maybe because this was a rewatch for me, and Bad Timing was the first time. And I think the first time I watched Man on Fell Earth, I watched this movie for the first time. It was probably like 2003, or 2004, whenever it came out on DVD from Anchor Bay. I watched it once, and then I was like, that wasn't at all what I was expecting. And it took a long. I didn't watch it till now, so watching it now, I was like, okay, I do think this movie is, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It takes its time to get to its leisurely pace, but at the same time, I think it passes at a pretty good clip. But for that part, but yeah, no. What do you guys think of The Man Who Fell to Earth?
Throw it to you, Double A Lang.
Sure. Well, I kind of agree with what J.G. Ballard had to say about this movie. Ooh. And Ballard liked the movie, but he said he called it a brave failure.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But he goes on to say that the movie defies genre convention. But then he goes on to say, but with his alien dismantled and demoralized, Roeg has nowhere to go, since he cannot rely on the genre's conventions to rescue his film. And without the genre's conventions, the behavior of his hero becomes merely modishly psychotic. So I don't know if I read that last part, but I know what he means. Like, 'cause he tries so hard to get away from your typical sci-fi movie, but then it just has nowhere to go. I think if you're interested in Nicolas Roeg or even interested in David Bowie, that like this is a must-watch.
Yep.
But I'm not a huge fan of this one. I wish I liked it more. I think Bad Timing and Don't Look Now are both way better. The movie's it's got some really compelling imagery. I mean, Bowie is captivating, but it's just kind of a mess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Even though I feel like I like it well enough, and I'm like, yeah, I know I like, but yeah, I think Don't Look Now. It's pretty tough to top. I think it's been a while since I've seen that movie too. These are movies that, again, Nick Roeg has no apologies when it comes to the old sex scenes, and I always like, because most people talk about Don't Look Now as heralding as like one of the best depictions of sex and what real human sex looks like in a movie. And then we get Man Who Fell to Earth scene of the sex, this big sex, I don't know what you call it.
The big sex. The
jamboree, where it's just like the rock out session, which some people say it goes on forever. And I was like, it wasn't that bad. I don't know. Until people even talk about it, I don't even remember it. Mm. But yeah, like Don't Look Now is just a more interesting puzzle because there is satisfaction to it, and it's still downbeat, but it makes sense. And I think with Man Who Fell to Earth, with what J.G. Ballard's saying there, old J.G., that it does kind of run into this thing where you're like, what was this movie about?
Yeah, it's got so Don't Look Now and Bad Timing are pretty contained. They have big ideas, but they're also kind of limited in scope. While Man Who Fell to Earth, there's just a lot of ideas, and I feel like almost none of them are satisfactorily taken in a complete direction.
Are Bad Timing and Don't Look Now, are those books as well? Because like Man Who Fell to Earth was someone else, but like were those ones also like adapted? Or
I think Don't Look Now was an original work by
from Nick Roeg.
I prepare to be. It's a thriller adapted from a short story by Daphne du Maurier, who wrote like Jamaica Inn, RJ. And,
I love Jamaica
and The Birds and Don't Look Now. Yeah, so it is based on a short story, but I feel like that movie is probably very far removed from that short story.
Sure. When short stories, I feel like have a little bit more flexibility potentially than say a full novel or a full sci-fi novel, maybe.
Right.
I'm just curious, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, you guys like movies or?
RJ, what do you think about this man falling to Earth?
All right, so here's my rub. As I've mentioned before, I'm a big David Bowie fan, so I like him a lot. But I wouldn't let that sway me on the movie because even though he is the focus, it's not really about him, right? I mean, they shoehorn a few things in there near the end about music, but I don't think this is necessarily a David Bowie movie other than him being the star, so I wouldn't let that sway me. When I first watched this, I was like, I like it. It's good. It's not great. On my rewatch, I definitely actually liked it a lot more, to be honest. So I was watching it, and I do think it's up front. I do think it's a bit much. Like it is a little long, like what you said, Jarrett. It doesn't feel like it, but it is a bit like long. Where I think I watched Bad Timing, and then I watched about an hour of Man Who Fell to Earth, and then and one day, and then I finished Man Who Fell to Earth the next day. So it was like it's a long movie, but so I did like it more on the second watch, and it actually, there were a few things that kind of stuck out to me a little bit more. Like maybe it's just I'm getting older and I'm more cynical now or something like that. But I actually really liked the themes of the alcoholism themes, and I liked the themes of America is a bad place and people are going to use you kind of themes, which it's like it's not even like that overt, but like I mean, I guess it is, because it's just like it's an alien or a foreigner as they see him, and they he's getting to a level, they take him, and then they do what they want with him. So I was kind of like, I like this. It's not even like an America thing, but just like I don't even know, like not even capitalism, but like just current kind of world standards, where it's just like, yeah, if you're this person who kind of excels to a certain place, there are going to be people who try to take advantage of that. And that's again, maybe it's that I'm older now and I'm a little bit more crusty, that I was like, yeah, I get that. I see what that's like.
I guess though, I mean, my counter to that would be, it's like, but why do we care though? Because I don't think his character cares about that at all.
He doesn't, and that's I think that is one of the reasons I actually kind of go to it a little bit more, because I do think that like in a lot of situations where not even just people being misused, but say where you're trying to go this way and it goes that way, where I think it's a lot of the time where it's the people who don't make a scene, or like people who don't get like too concerned about it. Like I almost feel more for those people, where it's just kind of like, it's like, do you not know that you're being misused? And maybe that's like overstepping, where you're assuming of someone else. Like if they don't care, then they don't care, and whatever, then it's not your business. But for this movie, at least, where I actually, you know what I think it is for me is I equivalate it to like animal treatment almost, where it's like he doesn't realize that he's being kind of mistreated, and I'm just like, and I hate that, and that's like what I don't like seeing. Same thing with like, I don't like seeing how animals are treated in movies, and it's like he, even though he like kind of knows it's wrong, he's like, he's like, I have no feelings, I have no emotions, I hate anybody.
Alcazar Balthazar?
Kind of, a little bit. This one doesn't actually try to like herd a donkey in real life for a movie. So I feel like this one's a little bit a better representation in my books, just because it's they use a human who has consent, and I think that is the key difference there. But I do like that. So I like kind of that kind of like idea where it's just like, it's like you get a little up here and people are going to misuse you. And it's not even like that you have to like climb to a certain level for people to misuse you, but it's like people are just going to take advantage of you if they can. And it's like I mostly agree with that. I like the alien story, which I think is really cool. And it's like if an alien did come to Earth, we'd probably fuck them up. And I mean, that's just how it is. And I like that line at the end too, where Rip Torn's like, "You don't have any hard feelings." He's like, "If you guys came to our planet, we'd probably do shit to you too." So, and you're just like, oh, okay. But no, yeah, I was surprised because I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, it's good. I was like, I really like David Bowie and I like the way Nick Roeg makes movies. But I wasn't like super hot on it. But the second time watching it, I was like, I like this a lot more this time. There are a few things that it's a little drawn out, but I do like the overall kind of feel of this movie. It's like this is similar to a lot of ideas and feelings that I have, so I like it. I don't know. I feel like I had more to say, but I can't remember at this point. But no, I like the show. I think it's good. I like aliens. I like David Bowie. I think people are not great sometimes, and I feel like that's what this movie is about. I don't know. And so like when I was watching all those supplements too, like the screenwriter goes off about a bunch of different things about like alcoholism and the writer. And then I did watch a thing with like Rip Torn, and I think that was like the best insight I had, where Rip Torn was just kind of like, the movie's got a lot of clues. But they don't tell you what any of them mean. And he's like, and that's the mystery.
A movie of clues.
Yeah, and he's just like, the movie's a lot of clues. And he's like, but there's a lot they don't tell you. And he's like, and that's good. He's like, you don't need to know everything. And I was like, that's pretty cool, Rip Torn. Good for you.
One thing I didn't know till now was the screenwriter. Are you talking about Paul Meyersburg?
Yes. Yeah, he was the one I watched.
Yeah, he also worked on the screenplay for Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, starring David Bowie.
I wasn't
Robert
crazy.
Duncan Jones? Or Robert Jones? Sorry, what?
I wasn't that crazy about that movie.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, I can't remember when I watched that movie. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember a goddamn thing.
Put it out.
Yeah, Criterion. It'll be watched again one day.
I haven't seen it, but I know Bowie's in it.
And
buddy,
he also he also worked on the screenplay for Tome of Legia, directed by one Roger Corman.
Love that film. It's great.
With Bob Town.
Who doesn't love Bob Town?
Exactly.
So anyways, I like this movie. It's good. What do you guys think?
It's definitely the best Bowie movie.
No. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, actually, I don't even... Do you count Zoolander in that?
David Bowie. So you want RJ, would you have his Tesla in The Prestige?
He's great as Tesla. I mean, that's not a David Bowie movie, but he's great as Tesla in that thing.
Sorry here. His turn in Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me.
Also good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that Man Who Fell to Earth meant a lot to Bowie, and that images from it for album art, 2 albums in a row, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't soundtracks. Like, they have nothing to do with the movie. And 2 albums in a row, station to station and low. That's image taken straight from the film.
I think one of the things too is one of the things they were talking about was how they kept trying to make this movie an action movie, and Nick Roeg and David Bowie are like, it's not about that. It's about like all these other themes and ideas, and it's not really about an alien in that sense. It's like about how people kind of are with each other. And then I think that was one of the things that, like, why David Bowie liked it so much was apparently everyone told him this wouldn't work, no one's gonna like it, and it's kind of like what you said, it's kind of like a grand failure where it's like, no, it didn't actually do that well, but they kind of stuck to what they wanted. They're like, no, we're just gonna make this thing based on the book, and it's not showy, it's not flashy, but this is what the story is. And apparently, I guess when it was released in the States, it was edited very heavily, and it made even less sense. People are like, we have no fucking idea what this movie is about, but I don't know.
I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I could also imagine making a television series.
Oh yeah.
The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Why don't you tell our buddy Aaron Lange about this film?
I thought you were going to tell us all about it. So,
no.
This opens up with the ship crashes, and you get to see that there was 3 other people on the ship, and we get to see Lewis Smith. Or is that his name, right? Lewis Smith?
Fuck. I don't know.
We see him burying the bodies and like give some alien eulogy, and then yells, and then we turn to the fish out of water story of him making his way in the world. He stops at that 1980s American cafe truck stop where he meets a waitress. And he's like, I'll order the trucker's delight. And she's like, oh, you're going to regret it. And she brings out all these plates of food, and he eats it. And it's like, oh, it's too much food. And he's like, whoa, burping. And she's like, that'll be $33.25. He's like, oh, I have no money. And she's like, oh, you're joking me here. And he's like, no, I'm strapped for cash because I'm an alien using American expressions. And then I think he gives her some diamonds. Because like on my planet we have diamonds, so I can use this currency. She's like, "Are you for real?" And then he moves on his merry way, and then there's lots of that, like exactly what you'd expect for like that 1980s upbeat kind of music when he gets to the city. It's like a television show where I don't know, where it's like, here's our protagonist, and he has meetups with like inner city kids like Will Wheaton, who's like up to no good, but he's got a good heart, but he wears an oversized leather jacket, and he's trying to shoplift from the music store, but he's a good kid after all. He just needs some help, you know. Beverly D'Angelo is the love interest, who I guess would have been the ongoing one, perhaps.
Yes, I believe so. Actually, one thing, to cut you off for a second, one thing I do like is in the original, I like the obsession with television. This one, it's way more shoehorned in. It's like, I saw you on the MTV. Yeah. And then he's very much more like he speaks in TV quotes, and you're like, oh, yeah, interesting. But yeah, keep going.
It's pretty zany.
Zany for sure.
Yeah. Then the scene we mentioned earlier, where when he reveals he's the alien, and she's just kind of like, oh wow, thank you for telling me about it, and you just be like, that's what it is. I'm trying to think of like, oh yeah, Robert Picardo, the doctor, plays the FBI agent trying to get all this evidence together and find out about this alien and what his plans are, because he's making music, he's selling records.
He's doing something.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, you can listen to this crystal and it's got the music on it, and everyone's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then who's the guy who plays the Rip Torn character? He's like one of these like character actors.
He's always just like a greasy dude.
Is it Bruce McGill? Yeah,
I don't know his name, maybe, but
it's Bruce
he's just
McGill.
Always that greasy dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's in everything. So he shows up and he's like, I just want to help, and because he goes to the music store, because the Enterprise just starts up immediately, and you're like, well, now he's rich forever, and now he's just going to help out people, and I could imagine this playing out every week. The Man Who Fell to Earth, but you're like, what's his goal exactly? To stay ahead of the government as he tries to like get back home would be the storyline, because he's like, we came to Earth to get water.
So maybe, I don't know if you saw, Jarrett, but did you see that this is actually a TV show that's currently in production?
I did learn that this very night.
Well, Ejiofor?
Yeah, there's going to be a show now. They're really going to do it this time.
Yeah, so they're really doing it.
I imagine that they're going to completely abandon any sort of Nicolas Roeg affectations in terms of how his show is edited.
I imagine.
Yeah, and it'll be something prestige television.
prestige format television.
Am I missing anything from my recap of the Man Fell to Earth 1987 movie?
It's, I don't know. Will Wheaton is there with a tasseled leather jacket, a la Macho Man. He's in there for a little bit. It's very lighthearted, which isn't like, I mean, it's not the worst thing, whatever. But it's very playful, where it's just like, hey, I'm an alien. What do you guys do? Whoa. It's not like slipping on banana peels, but it's almost kind of there. Because there's scenes where he's like driving on the wrong side of the road, and they're like, "Where'd you learn how to drive?" He's like, "From TV," and he's just like driving into other cars, and you're like, "Okay." He also has like the intro to this is pretty wild, where his like plane crashes, and then he like pulls out a crystal and drops it, and then prays for a minute, and then at the end of his prayer, he's like, "Wah!" and he just screams. And then it's done, and then he picks the crystal up and walks away, and you're like, that's strange. Like, what a weird thing to include in this. I don't know. Yeah, he talks to Beverly D'Angelo. They go to a dance. He's got some pretty sick dance moves, some Duncan moves in there. And at the end of it, when you're done the movie, you go, I didn't really need to watch that, did I? But I did. Yeah. So. Oh, well. We did it because we need to.
Part of an exclusive club.
Yeah. There are not a lot of people have seen that bad boy, but that's fine.
I think
you're not missing much.
I think that's
fine. It sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's dog shit.
Yeah. Yeah, not great. I don't recommend it.
No.
I don't recommend it.
Well, let us quickly run through who hates all these movies. My goodness.
Sure.
So, first up on Bad Timing. Monica gave this movie half a star. This film can actually burn in hell.
Monica, you crazy son of a bitch. Favorite films include Totally Effed Up, But I'm a Cheerleader, Houseu, and Smoke Signals, which is a movie that I'm surprised to see here. I think that's a Canadian film.
It is.
Wild.
Some Bruce McDonald.
Wild.
Vargey's half a star. Nicolas Roeg's first film of the 80s is akin to Tyrannosaurus Turd. Art Garfunkel and Teresa Russell deserve to be given the Tombstone Piledriver by The Undertaker and Stunner by Stone Cold Steve Austin, respectively. One of the worst films I've ever seen in my whole life. The Who's Who Are They is also used for some unexplainable reason. What insight. What a takedown.
I mean, while I don't agree with their take, I like all the wrestling things. Favorite films include Paris, Texas, Singing in the Rain, La La Land, and Elizabethtown.
Wow.
This person likes Paris, Texas. That's a real...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a movie.
Strange.
Trying to fuck me up. I don't understand these people. Like, if someone's like, I do not like Bad Timing, fine.
Yeah.
No argument for me. That is not for everyone. But to say it's bad, it's bad because you don't like it? That's not a reason. Like,
that's what they do, man.
What about Not Gary, 1 star? I love bad movies, and I couldn't stand this one. How can a movie be so bad? It's not even good.
I mean,
I guess it's like, I love movies are so bad they're good. It's like, that's the type of people we're dealing with right there.
Not Gary. Did you see the today's low review in here as well?
It didn't pop up when I looked.
I'm trying to send it to you on Facebook right now, but Facebook isn't loading at my residence.
I could try to get there. Tell me about Not Gary.
Not Gary? Where is Not Gary? Because I don't see it on Bad Timing.
Yeah.
Not Gary.
1 star.
1 star. I see.
Oh, I gotta
go to page 2 here.
I see Gary Collection missed my window, so I'll revisit him. Gary Collection. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Paul Simon's better half, the mom from Wild Things, and Mr. White walk into a noir film. Mr. White says, "Look at my Travolta hair." The mom says, "It's cool, but look how many pills I can swallow." Art wonders what bad career decisions landed him here. It's a tale as old as time. Man loves woman. Woman can't decide what she wants. Man loses his mind, and Harvey Keitel plays a hard-nosed cop. Does he play anything else besides that and criminals? Oh, wait. Sometimes he's a hard-nosed criminal cop. That's Gary. You find not Gary?
Favorite films include Cleo from 5 to 7, Tampopo, Desert Hearts, and Daisies.
Oh, okay. It's complicated, but I don't know. I don't know if these people like some of the movies they claim they like. That's all I gotta say.
Potentially not.
And for Man Who Fell to Earth, I got 2.
Okay.
Girl Boss Piss, half a star.
Great.
If you say you like this movie, you are lying, or you just really like seeing David Bowie's penis.
I mean, you don't even see it that much.
Yeah.
But favorite films include Zootopia, Edward Scissorhands, Rocket Man, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh, God.
There you go, baby.
One more. Lachlan Wong, half a star. Is this supposed to be art? 2.5 hours of overblown amounts of sex. David Bowie's horrific acting. Weird sci-fi shit that no one gives a damn about. Pointless shit, stupid, shallow characters with the personalities on par with a stale potato. And the worst, and I mean worst, sex scene in history, where it's essentially David Bowie pretending that his gun is his penis and shooting blanks. Also, the gooey alien shit in the weird samurai sequence. What the fuck were you thinking? Not to add David Bowie's fucking awful alien powers. Ha 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 ha. Fuck this movie so much.
I mean, I don't agree with any of that.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many legitimate criticisms you can make of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and those aren't them. Yeah. This person likes Magnolia and Boogie Nights and Shaun of the Dead.
These people sound like boomer Beatle fans complaining about Yoko Ono, where they're just like not even actually meeting anything on its own terms. Like they're never actually talking about Yoko Ono. But they're just like, oh, she's just screaming. Why are they doing this?
And they're all like 21 years old. That's the thing. And they sound like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, crap people is what I say. RJ, what about Lachlan Wong? Those were the ones? Or did you say?
He's not there.
Did he vanish?
Yeah, he's gone. Don't you see?
I can't. No, the way I've got my window open, I only see you right now.
Oh.
And he walked away.
Oh.
Well, he left us to our own devices. Well, how like him. Well, that's it for who hates. Aaron, any final words on this double header of rogue action?
No, you've worn me out. I'm exhausted. I'm operating at lower brain capacity.
I know. I'm feeling you, and I'm like 2 hours ahead still. So, damn. Well, yeah. Thank you.
This is the first time up in a long time.
Oh well, thanks so much. The sacrifice will be noted. RJ, are you back?
No,
he's dead. Well, fuck him. Well, screw him. After the break, Aaron Lange's gonna go to bed.
It's true.